On the day of my wedding ceremony with Ethan, he didn't show up. Instead, his younger brother, Silas, came, the one whose legs had been crippled. The family said my temperament was too fierce, that I wasn't fit to be the lady of the house, and only deserved to care for a cripple. Ethan's bride, meanwhile, had been replaced by my docile cousin, Chloe. She clung to Ethan's arm, smiling at me with feigned innocence. "Eleanor, you won't blame me, will you? Ethan said he loves me." Richard handed me a bottle of pills, silencing any words I might have spoken. "Either drink this, or go through with the marriage. Don't disgrace the Sue family any further." I chose the marriage. Before we continue, subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. I walked over to Silas's wheelchair, leaned down, and whispered in his ear, though my voice was loud enough for Ethan, who stood not far off, to hear clearly. "My husband, from today onward, I am yours. What they owe you, I will help you reclaim, piece by piece." The moment those words left my mouth, the air in the entire wedding hall froze. The guests' hushed whispers ceased instantly, and every eye in the room fixed on me. Ethan's face, which had been beaming with triumphant glee moments before, instantly darkened. He flung Chloe's hand away and strode towards me in a few furious steps. "Eleanor, what are you doing? Haven't you caused enough disgrace already?" I lifted my head and met his gaze directly. The designed wedding gown I wore, worth millions, had been personally chosen by him for me. Now, it had become the most ironic joke imaginable. Disgraceful? "Ethan, your bride had her groom swapped on her wedding day, and you're asking me if it's disgraceful? You." He was utterly speechless, his face flushing from anger to pale. Chloe, who stood nearby, immediately pressed against him, leaning weakly into Ethan, her eyes red-rimmed. "Eleanor, please don't be like this. Ethan has his reasons." "Uncle. You said your temperament was too fierce to be the lady of the house, and I only agreed for the sake of both the Sue and Vance families' reputations. With every Eleanor and every for the sake of reputation, she truly bloomed like a sanctimonious innocent." I burst out laughing. "So, I should thank you? Thank you for stealing my husband, hijacking my wedding, and expecting me to uphold your reputation?" My father, the family of the Sue family, could no longer sit idly by. He strode over quickly, his face ashen. "Eleanor, shut up. Haven't you caused enough trouble already? Get to the back. Get out." I looked at my biological father. There wasn't a trace of compassion for his daughter in his eyes, only anger and fear for the family's tarnished reputation. "Richard, I am your daughter too. Today, it is I who am being publicly humiliated here. How dare you speak?" He lowered his voice. "If you weren't so stubborn, always trying to be strong, why would the Vance family replace the groom at the last minute? You're a disappointment, and now you have the audacity to cause a scene here?" The world spun around me, and my heart felt as if an invisible hand had seized it, pain making it impossible to breathe. So, in their eyes, it was all my fault. Beatrice, Ethan's mother and the lady of the house of the Vance family, slowly approached at that moment. She looked me up and down, as if appraising an item of no value. "Eleanor, the Vance family isn't unreasonable. Ethan is set to inherit the family business, and he needs a gentle, virtuous wife, not a strong-willed partner who constantly challenges him. Look at Chloe, she's perfect, docile and sensible." She paused, her gaze falling on Silas, who was behind me. "Marrying isn't exactly a demotion for you. Even though his legs are crippled, he's still the Vance family's second young master. Your fierce nature, paired with caring for him, will temper you nicely." What a grand pretense. They had colluded long ago, treating me as disposable trash, orchestrating my fate with chilling clarity. I looked at the faces before me, Richard's cruelty, Ethan's heartlessness, Chloe's hypocrisy, and Beatrice's arrogance. I laughed, tears welling up. "Good, truly good. You've orchestrated everything so perfectly." I no longer looked at them. Instead, I turned and faced Silas, who was in his wheelchair. He remained silent throughout, like a lifeless puppet, allowing himself to be manipulated by everyone. His head was bowed, I couldn't see his expression. I took a deep breath and abruptly tore the skirt hem of my magnificent wedding gown. With a sharp rip, the sound of tearing silk was jarringly loud in the silent hall. Under everyone's shocked gaze, I threw the long, torn skirt hem to the floor, leaving myself in a simple, sharp red dress. I pushed Silas's wheelchair and turned to leave. "Stop!" Ethan roared behind me. I didn't stop. "Eleanor, if you dare walk out that door, don't ever think about returning to the Sue family." Richard's threat followed swiftly. Still, I didn't stop. I pushed Silas, step by step, out of this gilded cage that made me nauseous. Behind me, the master of ceremonies awkwardly announced the exchange of rings, followed by the guests' hypocritical applause and well wishes. None of it concerned me anymore. I pushed Silas through the long corridor, heading towards the new room the Vance family had prepared for us. It wasn't a room in the house, but a small courtyard located in the most secluded, furthest corner of the estate. People called it the wing. The name the wing was truly fitting. The courtyard was overgrown with weeds, and moss covered the flagstones. Pushing open the creaking wooden door, a musty, stale odor assailed me. The furniture inside was covered in thick dust, spiderwebs hung from the rafters, and the only window covering was torn, letting in a constant draft of cold air. This was Silas's and my new room. A discarded cripple, publicly rejected by his family, and a woman publicly disgraced at her wedding. Indeed, we were well matched. The servants escorted us to the door, then vanished, without a single extra word. When dinner time arrived, only a meal tray was delivered. I opened it to find a few dry bread rolls and a dish of pickled vegetables that had already gone sour. It was leftovers from the wedding reception of Ethan and Chloe. I expressionlessly closed the meal tray and pushed it aside. Silas remained quietly in his wheelchair, motionless, as if completely unaware of everything. As night deepened, there was no heating charcoal in the room, and it was as cold as an ice cellar. My thin red dress offered no protection against the cold. I shivered, looking at Silas. He, too, was wearing only a thin suit, his lips turning slightly purple from the cold. "Do you need me to help you change?" I asked. It was the second thing I'd said to him. He didn't answer, still keeping his head down. I took his silence as agreement. I found a mold-smelling quilt, shook off the dust, then walked up to him, intending to help him take off his suit jacket. The moment my hand touched his shoulder, he flinched violently, as if scalded. Ignoring his resistance, I forcibly removed his jacket. As I unbuttoned his shirt, my fingers brushed his skin, which was icy cold to the touch. After dressing him in clean, old clothes, I prepared to help him wash. When I rolled up his pant leg, I froze. His legs were severely atrophied, terrifyingly thin, and his skin was deathly pale, devoid of any color. But what shocked me even more were the crisscrossing old scars that covered his legs and body. There were long, whip-like marks, cuts that looked like they were made by a sharp blade, and several suspicious round burns. These injuries could not possibly have been caused by the car accident. My heart sank. What exactly lay behind the crippling of his legs? Just then, Chloe's affected voice drifted from outside the door. "Eleanor, are you there?" "Then and I have come to see you." The door opened, and Chloe walked in, arm in arm with Ethan. She was wearing a lavish evening gown, completely out of place in the dilapidated room. Her gaze swept around the room, speaking words of concern, yet unable to hide the triumph and disdain in her eyes. "Oh, Eleanor, how can you two be living here? It's far too primitive. The servants truly are negligent. How could they treat you so poorly?" From an exquisite bag, she took out a beautifully packaged box of pastries. "Ethan had these macarons specially flown in from France. I couldn't finish them, and since you have nothing here, I brought them over. Eleanor, please don't mind them." It was that same old excuse. She placed the pastries on the dusty table, as if offering alms. Ethan stood behind her, not once looking at me. His gaze seemed to imply that even a second's glance in my direction would be a great favor. I sneered internally, but forced a fragile smile onto my face. "Thank you, Chloe. You and Ethan are so kind to me." I walked to the table, picked up a macaron, took a small bite, and then said with a tone mixed with envy and disappointment, "It's so sweet. You truly are lucky to have Ethan doting on you like this. Unlike me. I really envy you." Hearing my words, Chloe's smugness deepened. What she loved to see most was my forlorn, self-pitying demeanor. "Eleanor, don't talk like that. If you ever face any difficulties, just tell me. I'll certainly help in any way I can." "All right." I nodded, continuing her line of thought. "Then could you please speak with Ethan for me? Ask him to tell the servants to at least bring us some hot meals." My display of weakness completely disarmed Chloe. She patted her chest, promising to speak with Ethan. After they left, I spit out the macaron I had only bitten once. It was too sweet, cloyingly sweet, making me nauseous. That night, I was woken by a suppressed coughing sound. It was Silas. He was curled up in bed, clutching his stomach tightly, his forehead slick with cold sweat, his body trembling uncontrollably from the pain. It was then that I realized he suffered from a severe stomach ailment. It made sense. A long period of irregular eating, coupled with not eating all day, would naturally trigger it. I watched his suffering, feeling no ripple of emotion. We were merely allies, not husband and wife. However, a healthy, clear-headed ally was always more valuable than a sickly one. I stood up and, for the first time, walked into the kitchen, which was even colder than the room. It was utterly empty, save for a small amount of rice and a few nearly rotten greens. I started a fire, rinsed the rice, and with those meager ingredients, cooked him a bowl of hot porridge. By the time the porridge was ready, dawn was breaking. I brought the porridge to him. He had stopped trembling, but his face remained pale. He looked at me directly. It was the first time he had truly met my gaze. "Drink it," I said. He didn't move. I picked up the spoon, scooped some porridge, and held it to his lips. "I don't intend to care for an ally who dies of illness." He finally reacted, silently taking the bowl and slowly, spoonful by spoonful, drank every last drop. The next day, Chloe's sweet talk seemed to have had some effect. The meals delivered at noon were no longer leftovers from the wedding reception, though still simple, at least they were hot. But stomach medicine had still not arrived. I sought out Peterson, the butler in charge of the wing. He was lounging casually, legs crossed, snacking on sunflower seeds, not even bothering to glance at me. "Peterson, where is the second young master's stomach medicine?" I asked. For he slowly spat out a sunflower seed shell, looking at me as if I were an idiot. "Medicine? What medicine? I know nothing about it." "The medicine the doctor prescribed yesterday. The order should have been sent to you already." "Oh," he drawled, "now I remember. There was nothing about it. But the pharmacy said that imported medicine is very expensive, too valuable to waste on a cripple." His words were filled with undisguised contempt. "So, you decided to withhold the medicine on your own initiative?" My voice grew cold. "What do you mean withhold? That sounds awfully rude." Peterson stood up, dusting sunflower seed shells from his hands. "Miss, oh no, I mean the second young madam. I advise you to recognize your place. You are no longer the high and mighty Mississippi. You are married to a cripple from the Vance family, someone even less than a servant. You should be grateful for hot food, don't push your luck." I looked at his plump, greasy face and suddenly felt that arguing with him was a futile endeavor. Reasoning was useless against such a power-tripping lackey. Without a word, I turned and walked into the adjacent small hall. In the center of the small hall stood a priceless heirloom vase, said to be centuries old, a prized possession of the Vance patriarch. I walked over, and under Peterson's astonished gaze, raised my hand and violently pushed the vase to the floor. Crash, with a deafening sound, the vase shattered into countless porcelain fragments across the floor. The entire courtyard fell silent instantly. Peterson's face went white in an instant, his lips trembling as he pointed at me. You're insane." "I am insane." I stepped over the shattered pieces and walked up to him. "Now, will you go get the medicine? Or would you prefer I smash everything else in this place?" My reputation was already fierce, and now I had firmly cemented my title as a madwoman. Peterson fled, terrified and scrambling. Within 10 minutes, Beatrice, Ethan's mother, and the lady of the house of the Vance family, arrived in a furious rush, accompanied by a large group of servants. She surveyed the wreckage, trembling with rage. "Eleanor, you crazy woman. Do you have any idea how much that vase was worth?" I stood calmly in the center of the courtyard, watching her. "I don't know how much it's worth. I only know that Silas's stomach medicine is worth more." "You, madam." I cut her off. "I can smash one vase today, and tomorrow I can set fire to the manor. I have a life with nothing to lose, I have nothing left to hold back. If you want to see Ethan and Chloe live happily ever after, then you'd best not provoke Silas and me." My words made Beatrice's face change repeatedly. She had probably never encountered a madwoman like me who completely defied expectations. Ultimately, she relented. "Go, get the medicine." She barked at the servants behind her. That very day, Silas's imported stomach medicine was delivered, along with a month's supply. Not only that, the meals from the kitchen became considerably more generous, and we even received heating charcoal. With one vase, I had bought us a period of peace. After this incident, the servants' gazes were tinged with fear. They no longer dared to hold back or neglect us in the slightest. That night, as I was preparing to sleep, Silas, sitting in his wheelchair, suddenly handed me a folded slip of paper. I opened it to find only a string of code, resembling a stock ticker. "What is this?" I asked. "A secret account my mother left behind." His voice was low, yet remarkably clear. "There isn't much money in it, but enough for us to take the first step." I looked at him. He still kept his head down, hidden in the shadows, but for the first time I sensed not despair and stillness emanating from him, but a dangerous aura that had long been dormant. He was not a puppet, not a cripple. He was a beast that had merely been biding its time. This was the first time he had shown me his fangs. "What do you intend to do?" I asked. "Reclaim everything that is mine," he replied. "Why should I trust you?" He lifted his head, and in those eyes that had always been dull and lifeless, there now gleamed a light I couldn't decipher, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. "Because we are the same kind of people, both abandoned by the world, both with nothing left, both wanting to utterly destroy them." His words were like a key, unlocking the darkest box in my heart. Yes, we were the same kind of people. "All right." I tucked away the slip of paper. "I'll help you. You handle the strategy, and I'll handle the execution. A pleasure working with you." That night, two souls abandoned by the world formally forged an alliance of vengeance in the wing, the Vance family's most dilapidated corner. Our alliance quietly began its work in the shadows. Silas was like a strategist hidden behind the scenes. He knew everything about the Vance family and could pinpoint every weakness in their business empire with precision. And I was his hand extended to the outside world, responsible for executing every plan. Using the money his mother had left, we quickly moved in and out of the stock market, rapidly accumulating a significant initial fund. Everything was moving in a positive direction. I even began to harbor a fleeting illusion that we could win. Until sought me out again. That day, he burst directly into the wing, not followed by Chloe. He looked a bit haggard, but still carried himself with that superior air. "Eleanor, Chloe is participating in this year's annual showcase, and it's very important to her." He got straight to the point. I ignored him, continuing to sort the herbal remedies in the courtyard. These were for Silas's rehabilitation therapy. "I'm talking to you, are you listening?" he said, growing impatient. "I heard you," I replied flatly. "What does her entering a competition have to do with me?" "She set her sights on the original design drafts your mother left you." My hands paused. Original was the only memento my mother left me. She had been the most renowned jewelry designer in the country. Those design drafts were the coming-of-age gift she had created for me before her death, a masterpiece into which she had poured her heart and soul, and my most cherished spiritual anchor. I stood up, my heart pounding violently with anger. "Tell her to forget about it. Eleanor, don't make me force your hand." Ethan frowned. "Chloe said that if she can win the championship with Original, she'll be very happy. If she's happy, I'll be happy. And if I'm happy, I'll naturally consider improving Silas's medical treatment, perhaps even sending him abroad for care." He was using Silas to threaten me. Using my only ally to exchange for my only spiritual anchor. "Get out." I spat the word through clenched teeth. "You." Ethan's face grew grim. "Don't forget, you're currently living off the Vance family, using their resources. What right do you have to bargain with me? I'll give you one day to think it over. Once you've made up your mind, hand over the designs." He slammed the door shut and left. I stood rooted to the spot, feeling a chill spread through me. I thought he would stop there, but I had underestimated their shamelessness. The next day, it was Richard who came. He wasn't alone, several elders from the Vance family accompanied him. They surrounded me as if I were a criminal on trial. "Eleanor, hand over Original. Richard's tone was an unquestionable command. "Richard, that was left to me by my mother." I practically shrieked. "Precisely because your mother left it to you, it should be used to contribute to the family." He spoke self-righteously. "Chloe is your sister, and she is now the Vance family's prospective daughter-in-law. Her future is tied to the Sioux family's reputation. As her elder sister, shouldn't you help her?" "Help her? Why should I? Those are my designs." "Because I am your father," he roared. "You will hand them over today, whether you want to or not. Guards, search her." 6 At his command, several servants rushed forward. I fought desperately, but how could a single weak woman contend with several strong men? They roughly restrained me and began ransacking the dilapidated room. Silas sat in his wheelchair, watching everything, his hands gripping the armrests tightly. I saw what he wanted to do and shook my head at him. It wasn't time yet. We were still too weak, we couldn't expose ourselves. Finally, among my personal belongings, they found the small wooden box I had cherished for years. Richard snatched it, opened the box, and pulled out the stack of slightly yellowed design drafts. "Richard, give them back." I cried out, struggling, but it was no use. He didn't even glance at me. Holding the design drafts, he turned and walked away. "Giving up your own family for a cripple. You truly are a disgraceful daughter." In that moment, all my strength drained away. I collapsed to the floor, watching their retreating backs, and for the first time, felt true despair. A few days later, The annual showcase took place as scheduled. Silas and I sat in front of the dilapidated television, watching the live broadcast. Chloe, dressed in a pristine white gauze dress, stood in the center of the spotlighted stage. The work she presented was none other than my mother's original. That design, imbued with all my mother's dedication and love, had been brazenly appropriated by her. The host asked her about her inspiration. She flashed a pure, innocent smile at the camera. This collection is called Homage. It's a tribute to my aunt, Eleanor's mother, whom I've admired since childhood. My aunt passed away young and didn't get to see Eleanor grow up. So, I specially created this collection to honor my aunt's memory and, in a way, fulfill Eleanor's filial duty. Created. Fulfill my filial duty. Listening to the words coming from the television, each one struck my heart like a hammer blow. Below the stage, applause thundered. Ethan sat in the front row, watching her with eyes full of doting affection. Richard, my father, was also there, a proud, self-congratulatory smile on his face. All of them were applauding and cheering for this thief, this liar. Ndi, the true heir, could only hide in this dark corner, like a rat avoiding the light. Pooh, a gush of metallic sweet liquid surged up my throat. I lowered my head and saw bright red blood, drop by drop, falling onto my pale hand. The world began to spin before my eyes, and all sounds faded away. I only saw Chloe on the television screen, holding the championship trophy, smiling radiantly. Then, everything went black, and I completely lost consciousness. When I woke, I was lying in bed. The room was filled with a strong scent of herbal medicine. Silas sat by my bed, holding a bowl of dark, murky herbal medicine. I didn't ask how long I had been unconscious, nor what had happened. I simply sat up, took the bowl from his hand, and drank it all in one gulp. Bitter, astringent, like my life at that moment. After drinking the medicine, I handed the bowl back to him and spoke my first words since waking. From today forward, Eleanor is dead. He looked at me, said nothing, and simply nodded silently. My world, after that mouthful of blood, became eerily quiet. There was no anger, no sorrow, not even hatred. Only a desolate, icy calm remained. My spirit was broken, and I became invincible. I began to act. I took all the money I had earned in the stock market and registered a shell design company. The company had no office, no employees, just a single name, Phoenix. Then, I found Arthur. Arthur was the chief artisan who had worked alongside my mother, a master craftsman known for his integrity. After my mother passed, he, disgusted by the internal strife at the company, was marginalized and suppressed. He eventually returned to his hometown in despair, opening a small silver craft shop. When I found him, he was at his workbench, tapping and hammering. He saw me and froze for a long moment. Eleanor? 7 Arthur, I need your help. I skipped the pleasantries and went straight to the point. I told him my plan and invited him to come out of retirement and become the chief artisan for my company. He was silent for a long time, then shook his head. Eleanor, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that I'm old now, and I don't want to get involved in those matters anymore. Arthur, are you content? I asked him. Content to see my mother's lifelong work stolen, content to let those brilliant designs gather dust, content to let those petty people succeed and rise by trampling on our dignity? My words struck a chord with him. From my bag, I pulled out a new design blueprint. It was a new design, an improvement on original, based on more intricate, unsketched concepts my mother had once mentioned from my memory. Arthur took just one look, and his hands began to tremble. This is Madame's style. No, it's even more advanced than Madame's ideas back then. Arthur, my mother left me not just a stack of manuscripts, but her entire understanding and passion for jewelry design. All of it is in my head. I pointed to my temple. I need you to turn them into reality. Together, we will reclaim everything that is ours. He looked at me, and a light rekindled in his cloudy eyes. All right, Eleanor. I'm with you. Not just Arthur, I also sought out the old artisans who had been ousted from the company for similar reasons. With sincerity, with a blueprint for the future, and with respect for their talent, I gathered them, one by one, under the banner of Phoenix. We had no office, we worked out of Arthur's atelier. We lacked funds, so we used modest silver for our prototypes. Meanwhile, I began to play the role of a woman whose spirit was broken in front of Ethan and Chloe. I became silent and withdrawn, spending every day in the wing, tending to herbs, brewing medicine, like a truly resigned, abandoned woman. When they came to see me, I no longer offered any resistance or defiance, merely responded with numb compliance. Chloe brought clothes and jewelry she no longer wanted. I accepted everything, even thanking her. Ethan would occasion. I ask insincerely about Silas's condition. I would only say, same as always. My disguise was successful. They gradually lowered their guard, no longer seeing me as a threat, but merely a pitiful and detestable backdrop that occasionally needed soothing. They didn't know that in the shadows, unseen by them, a phoenix rising from ashes was quietly rebuilding its strength, preparing for rebirth. I quietly applied for design patents for each of those improved original designs. The registrant was myself. The fatal blow I had prepared for them was already quietly laid. Now, I only needed to wait for the right moment, a moment that would make them fall the hardest, ensuring they could never recover. Chloe became famous thanks to the renown of Original. She and Ethan together founded a high-end jewelry brand named CY. C stood for Chloe, and Y for Ethan. Undying devotion, indeed. The family injected a large sum of investment into this brand. They rented the most luxurious office building downtown. They held a grand opening ceremony. Chloe became the media's darling genius designer, and Ethan became the devoted and wealthy CEO. They were enjoying boundless prestige. At an inconspicuous international expo, under the company name Phoenix, I anonymously exhibited an improved original necklace. That piece was called Echo. Even in its humble corner, it captivated the attention of all the top industry experts. The exhibition caused a sensation. Everyone wanted to know who the designer was. I didn't reveal any information. I was merely, in the shadows, creating my own suspense. Ethan and Chloe's brand was about to launch its first official collection. The theme, once again, continued the style of Original. 3 days before the launch, I used an anonymous email to send the core design details of their new products to a second-tier brand that they had consistently suppressed. That brand, as if having found a treasure, worked through the night. The day before the CY launch, they preemptively released new products with an extremely similar style. The CY launch became a joke. The moment it was released, it was plunged into a huge cloud of plagiarism suspicion. At the launch, Chloe cried profusely, claiming she was the original designer. Ethan was overwhelmed, mobilizing the Vance family's public relations resources to desperately suppress the negative news. But the internet remembers. The phrase "genius Chloe" of plagiarism lingered on the trending list, refusing to fade. This was just the first step. Silas, through his network, obtained the Vance family's complete financial statements. Like a precise surgeon, he circled a name on it. This person is the most crucial angel investor behind Ethan's brand. He's also been a longtime partner of the Vance family. But he has a secret, an illegitimate son living abroad who's currently short on cash. I understood Silas's implication. I contacted the investor. I didn't appeal to his emotions, I only discussed profits. I laid out before him the design blueprints for my anonymously exhibited Echo, as well as a series of subsequent design concepts. I promised him a return on investment 3 times higher than Ethan's. He was a businessman. Businessmen always pursue profit. 3 days later, he withdrew all his funds from the CY project. Ethan and Chloe were in a frantic mess. The brand's reputation was damaged, and simultaneously, its financial chain faced a massive crisis. Their good days were over. The Jewelry Summit was held at Sterling City's most prestigious convention center. Although was deeply embroiled in the plagiarism scandal, with the Vance family's influence, she still secured a speaking slot as an emerging talent representative. She intended to use this opportunity to clear her name. Wearing a well-tailored white suit, she stood on stage, trying to portray herself as an wronged, strong original designer. Design, above all, requires sincerity. Every single one. If my creation stems from the truest emotions within me, she spoke with great passion and conviction. Ethan, in the audience, watched her with eyes full of support and trust. I sat in the most inconspicuous corner of the venue, listening quietly. Once her speech concluded and the climax of the event began, I stood up. Step by step, I walked onto the stage, which was the focus of all eyes. The host, not recognizing me, attempted to intervene. I simply picked up the microphone from the podium. "Miss, is this what you refer to as original?" The large screen behind me lit up synchronously the moment I stepped onto the stage. What appeared on it wasn't a PowerPoint presentation, but photographs of slightly yellowed manuscripts. They were the complete manuscripts of my mother's original. In the bottom right corner of each manuscript, there was a clear timestamp, signed with my mother's name. The earliest date was 10 years ago. These are the posthumous works of my mother, the renowned jewelry designer, Ms. Serafina. And I am her daughter, Eleanor. My voice, carried by the microphone, echoed clearly throughout the entire venue. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Chloe's face instantly went ashen. You're lying. I drew that. She was still putting up a final struggle. Oh really? I sneered. Then take a look. Do you recognize this elderly gentleman? The doors to the venue swung open. Arthur, accompanied by several veteran craftsmen who had worked with my mother years ago, walked in. They were all highly respected elders in the industry. We can vouch for it. Arthur walked onto the stage, picking up another microphone. We were all present when Serafina drew the original drafts. This is truly Serafina's brainchild. What's more, I continued, Miss Chloe's so-called original work doesn't even fully grasp the essence of my mother's design. Now, please direct your attention to the main screen. The drafts on the screen then switched to the patent CE certificate for my improved work. These are my new designs, improved upon original and already patented. I'd like to ask Ms. Chloe, as a supposed original creator, why you don't even know the complete concept behind the work. Chloe completely collapsed to the floor, unable to utter a single word. Her reputation was utterly destroyed. Chloe! Ethan rushed onto the stage, trying to shield her. He glared at me furiously. Eleanor, do you have to be so ruthless? Ruthless? I looked at him and smiled. Who's truly ruthless? Ethan, it was you. To please your new flame, you resorted to coercion, even colluding with my father, Richard, to forcefully seize my mother's belongings. I did not. He vehemently denied it. Oh, really? I pulled a voice recorder from my pocket and pressed play. Eleanor, don't make me force your hand. I'm giving you 1 day to think it over. Once you've decided, hand over the items. From the voice recorder, his voice clearly recounted his coercion against me that day in the wing. The evidence was undeniable. Ethan's face was even paler than Chloe's. He was utterly disgraced. Offstage, several elders of the Vance family looked absolutely furious. The hundreds of millions they had invested in CY were completely lost, vanishing with this farce. The family became the laughingstock of the entire industry. Ethan's faction within the Vance family saw their power shaken like never before due to this massive scandal and failed investment. Within the family, undercurrents of dissent began to stir. All the uncles and elders sought to seize this opportunity to unseat him as heir and claim a share of the power. It was at this critical moment that Silas's secret rehabilitation achieved a breakthrough. He could stand again. Though he still needed a cane and walked slowly, he could indeed stand and walk on his own 2 feet. The pivotal board meeting, set to determine the family's future direction, convened in the study of the manor. Ethan was seated at the head of the table, enduring attacks and interrogations from all sides. Ethan, the losses this time are too significant. You're no longer fit to manage the company. $100 million invested, and you just let it go down the drain? You've completely tarnished the Vance family's reputation. Under the barrage of criticism, he was powerless to defend himself, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Just then, the heavy study doors were pushed open from the outside. I walked in steadily, step by step, supporting Silas. He leaned on his cane, each step firm and unwavering. A hush fell over the conference room instantly. All the directors, including the Vance family's patriarch, stared at Silas with expressions as if they'd seen a ghost. They watched as the cripple they had forgotten for 3 years stood up again. Ethan, in his shock, sprang from his chair, pointing at us, speechless. You too. Silas ignored him. He walked to the conference table and tossed a document onto the center of it. This is an overseas new energy investment plan I've developed. His voice, no longer low and hoarse as it once was, now resonated with clarity and confidence. If the plan proceeds smoothly, it won't just cover the losses from this jewelry project, it will also double Vance's market value within 3 years. Those present were all sharp individuals. They picked up the plan, and after just a few glances, their expressions shifted from shock to solemnity, and finally, to appreciation and admiration. The business acumen and boldness Silas displayed were far beyond anything Ethan, that blockhead, could ever hope to match. You developed this plan? The family's patriarch asked, his gaze complex as he looked at his second son. Yes, Silas replied. Excellent, simply excellent, a director exclaimed, slamming his hand on the table. Such boldness is exactly what the Vance family heir should possess. Most of the directors showed their support for Silas through their actions. Ethan's face was beyond description, ghastly wouldn't even begin to cover it. He knew he was finished. But he wasn't ready to give up. Richard, you can't believe him. He's a cripple. Brother, Silas interrupted him, his gaze chilling as he looked at Ethan. Do you remember the car accident 3 years ago? Ethan's body stiffened abruptly. Back then, the brakes failed. Everyone thought it was an accident. Silas slowly, step by step, walked up to Ethan. But they didn't know what you did to me on the way to the hospital. To ensure I'd never again be able to contend with you for the inheritance, you secretly bribed someone to tamper with my surgery, completely ruining my legs. And you also took a project proposal, just as crucial as this current plan, that I was preparing to submit to the board. Ethan, am I right? Every word Silas spoke landed like a heavy hammer, striking Ethan's head and the hearts of everyone present. The sharp blade of truth was finally unsheathed at that moment. Ethan was completely expelled from the Vance family. He was left with nothing but the clothes on his back. The family's patriarch was utterly disgusted with him, showing him no mercy. Seeing his downfall, Chloe immediately turned against him. She absconded with what little private property Ethan had left, vanishing without a trace. Truly, when disaster strikes, everyone fends for themselves. My father, Richard, the family, regretted his actions deeply after learning all of this. He arrived with lavish gifts, personally coming to the wing where we once lived, hoping to see me. He said he knew he was wrong and begged for my forgiveness. I simply instructed the new butler to close the gates. Some wounds, once inflicted, can never be truly healed. I am no saint, I cannot learn to forgive. Silas officially became the new master of the Vance family. He took the position Ethan had always coveted. The first thing he did after taking office wasn't to integrate company operations or purge dissenters. The first document he signed was an asset transfer agreement. He transferred half of the Vance family's assets entirely into my name. He said, "This is what I promised you. We've taken back everything that belongs to us." He then arranged a grand wedding ceremony for me, 3 years overdue. The wedding ceremony was held in the very hall where I had been humiliated. The guests were the same, but this time I was the sole bride. I wore the most beautiful wedding dress in the world, linking my arm through his. He stood by my side, declaring my identity to the world. Mrs. Vance. During the ring exchange, Silas released my hand in front of everyone. Then, he cast aside the cane that had been his constant companion. The cane hit the floor with a distinct clatter. He stood steady, walking toward me step by step. In his eyes, there was no empire, no wealth, no power. Only me. He knelt on one knee and placed the ring, symbolizing eternity, on my finger. He said, "Eleanor, marry me." I cried, and I smiled. I said, "I do." 3 years later, on a day of heavy snow, Silas and I were returning home by car after attending a charity gala. The city lights, blurred by the swirling snow, appeared somewhat indistinct. The car's interior was warm, keeping the bitter cold outside at bay. Halfway there, the car suddenly stopped by the side of the road. A tattered, shivering figure with purple lips from the cold spread his arms, blocking our path. It was Ethan. He looked 20 years older than he had 3 years prior, his body filthy, his hair a tangled mess. When he saw me in the car, his eyes erupted with a light that mingled ecstasy and despair. He staggered to the car window, frantically pounding on it. "Eleanor! Eleanor! It's me! It's Ethan!" The driver was about to scold him. Silas stopped him. Seeing the window wouldn't roll down, Ethan suddenly dropped to his knees in the snow with a thud. The snow was deep, instantly submerging his knees. Through the car window, he wept uncontrollably, facing me. "Eleanor, I was wrong, I truly know I was wrong. These past 3 years, I've lived a life worse than death. I've thought of you every single day. Please forgive me, won't you? Come back to me. See, that bitch Chloe is gone too, no one will bother us anymore. Eleanor, please, just give me another chance," he cried, repented, and pleaded. He was utterly debased. The car's warmth remained ample. Silas took my slightly chilled hand and drew me fully into his embrace. His chest was warm and strong. He covered my eyes with his hand. "Don't look. It's dirty." Then, he issued a chilling command to the driver. "Drive over him. My wife is sensitive to the cold, I don't want to delay outside." The driver hesitated for a moment but immediately started the car. The engine roared to life. The wheels sped past Ethan. Without the slightest hesitation, the cold mud and slush splashed up, like a black waterfall, completely engulfing the figure kneeling in the snow. Outside the car window, nothing remained but a vast expanse of white snow and the dirty tracks left by the wheels. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your opinions. and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.